Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar run by the University of Reading on BTEC study skills. So a very warm welcome from us at the University of Reading. My name is Louise Izzard and I'm a Regional Student Recruitment and Access Officer at the University, and I'm based full-time in London. I'm also joined by my colleague with me today, and I'll just let her introduce herself now.
Hi, so my name's Rachel. I also work at the University of Reading and I'm a Student Recruitment and Access Officer, and usually I am based full-time on the Reading campus.
In today's webinar, we are going to just be giving a short presentation to start off with, all about study skills specifically related to BTEC and those of you in college. So let's start off with coursework and academic writing. Now, you're probably already quite familiar with doing coursework. You might already have quite a lot of it to do during your BTEC that you might be studying at the moment. But just to give you a flavour of what you can expect at university, of course, it can really depend on the subject that you're studying, but often you will have to do some essay writing, particularly if you're doing kind of an academic-based subject or a humanities, business, maybe something like that. You will usually be expected to do some academic writing, some essay writing. You might also do some group projects as well. So that might be a presentation, or you might have to design a product, design an item, whatever it might be related to your course. So often, you know, working in teams and communication can be really important for that, something that you might already be very familiar with having done a BTEC. Another way that you might be assessed at university through coursework is through projects. So again, it does really depend on the type of course that you're doing, but it might be like a lab project, for example. And I would also really encourage students who are thinking about going to uni, you really need to think about what method of assessment you prefer the most. So for me personally, I hate exams. I would much rather do coursework. I'm much better at doing projects and essays. So when I went to university, I chose a course that was almost 100% coursework because I knew that I was no good at exams. So if you do prefer coursework, or, you know, on the other hand, if you prefer exams, do check on the university website, check your course and see what the main method of assessment is. When you're approaching coursework as well, a really good thing to start out with is by looking at the learning objectives. These will usually be posted by your lecturer or whoever it is who've set the work, and it can be a really good grounds for starting off your piece. We can talk a little bit more in detail about how to structure academic writing later on, but that can be a really good way to get started. So let's go into a bit more specifics about academic writing, such as essay writing. So as I say, it depends on what course you do, but a lot of courses will require you to do some academic writing at some point if you do choose to go to university. So these are just some things to bear in mind if that's something that you do have to do. So you might have already done it as part of your BTEC, or it might be something that's quite unfamiliar to you. But something that you do need to bear in mind is that with academic writing, you often will have to do referencing and cite your sources. Now, there's some really good sites online that you can just Google, and it'll tell you about all the different types of referencing styles there are. So you do need to make sure that whatever your department has told you to do, you do stick with that style of referencing. So it's all about, like, when you use a source in your essay, you say who wrote the source, what year, where it came from, just to like factually back up the writing that you do. There is plenty of extra support for academic writing. So at Reading, for example, we have our study support in the library. So you can kind of get like crib sheets of how exactly to do referencing or academic writing, and you can always approach your academic tutors for help too. Of course, with coursework and academic writing, research and planning is a really important part of the process. So you should definitely dedicate a large chunk of your time, especially at the start, to this, so that you can thoroughly research the question, plan the structure of your essay. So as I say, with the time span, you do want to spend a lot of time on research and planning, and make sure that you leave enough time as well to write it up. So you might have, you know, a few weeks to do the piece. So of course, classic advice, don't leave it to the last minute. You do want to think about your structure as well. So you might want to go for a logical structure. You might want to go, you know, chronologically, depending on what the topic is, or you might want to do like a point per paragraph. So you want to make sure that you're being really concise, 1 point per paragraph, Make sure that everything is based in evidence and that you're analysing the topic every single time you write a paragraph. And then also a good rule to bear in mind is the 3 C's, to be clear, concise, and to communicate. So do make sure that every paragraph that you write communicates the idea that you're exploring, it answers the question, and it does it in a really clear and concise way. Of course, as well, make sure that you proofread, do read through your essays plenty of times. If you've got other people that can read them through as well, that can be really useful. Check all your spelling, your grammar, your punctuation, make sure it's all written up you know, in a really nice way. And also when you're doing academic writing, using the formal active voice is really important. So making sure that everything you write is really concise and that you're not like kind of using the passive voice and making it quite unclear when you're writing. So as I say, at universities there often is study support. If you've not done academic writing before, you can practice and ask for that support when you are at university as well. So in terms of when you're at university, when you're in your lectures or your seminars, which we'll explain a little bit more about later on, you are expected to take notes and to, you know, take in everything that you're being taught. You know, this is probably something that you're very, very familiar with already in your studies, but there's lots of different ways in which that you can do this to really consolidate your knowledge, to make sure it sticks in your brain. One of the ways that I really like to take notes and to memorize and sort of revise for things is the Cornell system. So you will record like what it is that you're learning. If you're in a lecture, you take down notes of, you know, the topic for that week. Then you'll reduce your writing, so you need to consolidate it into like bullet points. Then recite, so if you read it back to yourself or write it again, reflect on it and review it as well. So you can have a little search of that note-taking method, and there's plenty of other types as well, which we'll talk about in a bit too. I've already mentioned, you know, going online and having a look at things like how to do referencing and how to write academically, but there's also some really good apps that university students use that you might want to have a look at already. So you can just have a look at these ones on screen, and you've got ones that do things like you can scan the barcode of a book and it will automatically create a reference for you. That's really useful if you're writing essays. You can use apps to kind of to go together with the Cornell note-taking system. You can use apps to take pictures of your notes, you can make them into flashcards, you can memorize them, practice quizzes with other people. And then another one that I really like is Off Time, and this is where you can block certain apps for a certain amount of time. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm really bad for procrastinating, and Off Time can like block things like Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or wherever you're looking at, and then you can really focus on the work that you're doing rather than getting distracted by other things.